Hello listeners and welcome to the Tyrantcast. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I present the 25th installment of a podcast-style, primarily audio discussion topic-centric video series, and just in time to commemorate hitting this podcast milestone, tonight I have the unlucky privilege of recording the episode that I was hoping I would never have to. Joining me as always is my dear friend Sam Mann. So, Sam, how are you, and what's the latest news about Conquest?
Doom! Doom is the latest news, and not the forecast Eldar card.
Yeah.
Conquest is officially going to be canceled after this cycle, so the announcement hit the interwebs last Friday morning. And, yeah, so, it was kind of, it was like our busiest weekend at work ever, like we have every year. And, so it was like, 5 days straight, no weekend days off of crazy overtime. And then
Right.
on top of that was some shitty news to get the weekend kickstarted. So I've been better, man.
Yeah, so you and I are sitting here, we're recording Monday, September 12th of 2016, so we're a few days removed from the news that Conquest is indeed essentially canceled. Fantasy Flight Games put out an article called A New Path Forward, and this was kind of long been suspected by the community. There's been lots of rumors.
A shitty path forward.
Yeah, exactly. But there's been a ton of rumor and speculation about this. Looks like Mommy and Daddy don't love one another anymore. Games Workshop and FFG had a partnership for 8 years, and as of February 28th, 2017, FFG is no longer going to sell, produce, develop any games under the Games Workshop intellectual property, including a whole host of different role-playing games, board games, and of course, card games, including Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. So, we figured we'd get together tonight, kind of talk about what our respective plans are to remain involved in the community here. FFG has announced that after the 2016 World Championships, there's going to be no more organized play support for Conquest. During the in-flight report at Gen Con 2016, it was shown on a graphic that Conquest was going to have a 2017 World Championships, but I guess they've kind of reneged on that decision there, and all pre-orders for store championship kits and Quarter 1 tournament kits have been canceled. So they're discontinued, they're not going to be released. We've got one war pack that should be in retailers by the time people have the opportunity to listen to this episode, and then one more left to go to stores, and then that's it. So, Sam, you said you've been pretty busy, but, I mean, what are your first thoughts? What's your gut reaction to our soul-crushing news here?
Well, like you said, we kind of heard about this a few months back, and, we kind of first heard these rumors that playtesters hadn't gotten new cards. Then this, should we worry thread popped up on Card Game DB, and, as time rolled on, more and more evidence was pointing towards that.
Sure. Nothing conclusive, but mounting evidence.
Nothing conclusive, but mounting evidence, and, so I had kind of accepted, that it was probably going to happen sooner or later. And, it's like the stages of grief, right? Anger and then sadness, and then kind of, eventually acceptance. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is just a game, that we just play for fun and something to, fill up our free time with. But, nonetheless, I've really enjoyed being part of this community, and I do look forward to still being part of the community, obviously, but the community is going to drastically shrink. And, it sucks, man, but, that's what happens. This is the real world, and there's business decisions to be made, and, money to be earned, and, that's how these things go. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, it was very strange when we first, I suppose I'll refer to it as the news, but a few months ago, some people started to mention, hey, we haven't really gotten any previews for a while. Rumor has it that playtesters haven't received any new content since the Death World cycle, so there's no... It wasn't for sure, but it seemed like there was no new deluxe expansion in the works being tested behind the scenes. There was no new cycle being developed. Fantasy Flight Games had been recently purchased by Asmodee, and I guess they have a history of kind of a strained relationship with Games Workshop. But at first, it was just rumor, conjecture, and speculation, and because there was no official word, there was nothing conclusive, I didn't necessarily believe any of the, back then everybody was referring to them as doomsayers and stuff like that until that Should We Worry thread popped up on Card Game DB, and a user there kind of made this laundry list of reasons to be concerned about the end of Conquest, and I spoke to the individual and kind of just scoffed and shrugged it off. But then it turned out there was a lot more going on behind the scenes, just because a lot of our, well, not current playtesters, but a lot of our former playtesters were behind non-disclosure agreements, so they weren't willing to come forward publicly, but because you and I have become community figureheads in a sense, people were willing to kind of bend the rules, talking to us in private, and all of a sudden I did start to become more and more convinced that the future of Conquest was looking a little bit bleak. You and I kind of...
A little grim? A little dark?
Right. And man, it's 38,000 years ahead of schedule, so...
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, you and I agreed we wouldn't talk about it on the show quite yet, just because we didn't want to, be labeled as doomsayers ourselves, and then, hey, it turns out there are expansions in the works, and Asmodee is just being quiet, but...
Yeah, I mean, I just never thought that talking about it on the cast would provide anything positive for either the show or the community, because there was no proof, and what little... I mean, it's not proof, but what I had that was pretty close to proof, I wasn't going to come public with. I had spoken to people privately, and they knew things, or had spoken to other people privately, and those were private conversations. So, now the news is out, and it appears that the information and the intelligence that we got was correct.
Yeah.
But, I didn't want to just be another, well, I heard that, blah, blah, blah. So, maybe we were naive or something. It was funny. I was updating last night the Tyrantcast thread to mention, episode 24. And I said, so join us one last time as we, in blissful ignorance, cast with our heads in the sand of, happiness. Because even though we knew about it, we tried to talk as though that problem kind of wasn't there, or, there was nothing to go on. No solid concrete evidence. So, but, so, I don't know. I was thinking, like, you were talking about the Worlds at 2017 was announced, and now they've kind of reneged on that. And, like, I saw some people were kind of like, hey, that was kind of like fucked up or deceptive. Like, they knew, and, like, yes, that sucks. But, like, you know what? First and foremost, they're a business.
Sure.
Like, FFG is a business, and they had, like, a duty to their company. Like, the whole, like, well, the customer comes first, like, that's true to a point, but, like, the company has to come first or the company will fail. Right. And they have a duty to themselves to sell the product that they have already produced. And, I'm not really, like, pissed off that they announced Worlds 2017 and they announced Organized Play Kits 2017. And it's like, like, nothing happened. No one's bought a ticket for Worlds 2017 and, like, booked their non-refundable airfare. Yeah. Or, like, the stores that got those things, those kits ordered, they're all getting refunded. So, does it suck? Yeah. And is it deceptive? I guess. But I don't really think I'd call it, like, fucked up. It's just, it's a business. That's the way businesses operate.
Yeah, and not to defend FFG, but for those kits that people could pre-order, it's not like they were showing alternate art cards that will never actually be printed or anything like that.
Right.
It was just like, click here to order your a quarter 1 tournament kit or something like that.
And I would imagine that, like, if it wasn't for Conquest being in the OP lineup, they probably could have spoiled juicy stuff for all the other games, but they wanted to speak in general terms.
Sure.
And to do that, they they just said, you're going to get some prizes, and you're going to get some, tokens, and you're going to get other things. Yeah. And all those things are true for the other games, just not for our game.
Yeah, and I just suppose before I completely forget about it, when you mentioned that a company has to come first, somebody mentioned on Facebook earlier today, they were asking, we've got the next pack that's due out the day that people maybe are listening to this recording, and we've got pack 6, the Warp Unleashed, still due to be shipped to retailers. They were asking, is Fantasy Flight Games going to make these available for free as like a PDF that you can print out? It's like, I don't think that's exactly the way that corporations work. So yeah, I mean, I suppose Conquest will be wrapping up kind of incomplete. We'll never see, like the Death World cycle didn't have a new warlord for each and every faction. Deep Strike was just introduced following Brad Andrews' Twitter account. Just over the past several months, part of the evidence that kind of pointed toward things being bad was just that kind of took a downturn, and it seemed like he was undergoing more stress than normal, so it just seemed like all signs pointed towards stuff going poorly. X-Wing has become something like the best-selling miniatures game on the planet. Then FFG came out with Star Wars Armada as well, and at least X-Wing is outselling 40K as a tabletop game. And during Gen Con, FFG also unveiled that they're going to be doing a Runebound miniatures game as well, and all of those products are in direct competition with Tabletop 40K, other Tabletop Games Workshop games, and GW has even been getting more into their, specialist board games and whatnot themselves. So it just seemed like everything was certainly headed in one direction, and it was just kind of tragic watching certain community members hold on so relentlessly to their optimism before eventually we did get an official announcement, and then everything kind of, came to a climax.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't even, say where I heard this, because I think I've assimilated little nuggets and pieces of knowledge from conversations and this website and that website and this Skype thread, and kind of put it all together. But it seems as though a prevalent theory is that, I heard one thing that, GW wanted Asmodee, they wanted their agreement with FFG to now encompass all of Asmodee's games or be retroactive towards Asmodee's games. And, I don't know if X-Wing factored into it or not. X-Wing is not a competitor with 40K in the sense that it's a similar product. I mean, it's a tabletop miniatures game, but it's not there's not army units, and it's not like a tabletop war game as much as it is, like a little spaceship game kind of thing. And, FFG's not giving up the Disney license. That's not going to happen, people. So, we'll never know the truth, but, I'm sure there's plenty of blame to go around. But a lot of people want to blame GW because of their poor track record with pleasing customers and thinking that they're the God's gift to tabletop gaming, that they want to take their ball and go home.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some truth to that. And for all I know, there's some accountability on the other side as well. So it takes two to tango,
Yeah, but I guess, Sam, since you and I have kind of become prominent community members, community magnates, if I may be so bold, how does this affect...
We're like the J.P. Morgans of...
Right. Oprah and her doctor, whomever.
I'm Stedman, you're Oprah.
Yeah, sure. But anyway, I suppose, how does this affect us? So over the past year and few months, I've created something like 350 Conquest videos. I've made it no secret that I kind of used Conquest as something to use to pull myself out of just feeling frustrated and depressed and kind of downtrodden about life. I was working as an inpatient therapist at a psychiatric hospital, and I ended up getting laid off. I went and I worked elsewhere. That was a nightmare of a job. I thought I wanted to go into nursing. That didn't end up panning out. And then I just kind of spent a year wallowing in despair until eventually I was thinking to myself, I used to do this Lord of the Rings podcast. I used to make Lord of the Rings LCG videos. How can I kind of recapture some of that magic? And I was always drawn to the 40,000 universe, so I tried out this Warhammer card game that I had been hoping would be developed forever. It ended up being a good fit. By that point, FFG had announced that Tyranids, my favorite tabletop faction, would be a part of the game, so I just kind of dove on in, started doing my card evaluation videos, and then, the rest is history. Fast forward like a year, and I've become a pretty, prolific video creator. But, I suppose you've done your online tournaments, and those are still ongoing to this day, but how does this news really affect you?
Well, it's kind of funny. Like, it's important and trivial at the same time. Like, I think any hobby, like hobbies are good. And, unless like, your hobby's heroin or something, but like a normal hobby is a good hobby. And, it's something to, pull you away from whatever it is in life that's got you down, whether it's a bigger issue, like, you had with, hey, I got laid off and what am I going to do with my career? But like, you can find an escape in something as simple as a board game or a tabletop game and the community that goes with it. Or if it's just like, man, I got work and I got, family responsibilities and, the mortgage and all this stuff. And hey, look, here's a game. And, I can, for a couple hours, I can sit down and play this and forget about all that and just have some fun and meet some friends. Like, it's a good thing. And I think a lot of people in this community, use it for that, and they enjoy it, and I've really come to enjoy it. I played Invasion, and I got into that as a fully grown man who hadn't played tabletop games since middle school, and I just thought, hey man, recapture a little bit of that magic of childhood, and just forget about the responsibilities of grown-uphood for a few hours and have fun. And of course, that got canceled. So here I am, 0 for 2 here with these Warhammer based LCGs. But, and of course I became much more involved in this community than I was in the Invasion community. And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed, I'm kind of a extrovert, I suppose. And I've enjoyed, making friends with, you and all these other people, Scott and Brian and guys that I talk to on Skype, and so it does suck. Like, you spend a lot of time, following an LCG, even if you're not on a podcast or making YouTube videos or whatever. People, they're on the forums every day, and they're on Skype every day and Facebook every day, and you're just talking about cards, and you're just, you do spend a lot of time. You put a lot of yourself into it, and so it sucks to have that ripped out from under you. But people are going to move on. There's other games. People are going to get into Game of Thrones 2.0. They're waiting for L5R. They're going to get into this Arkham Horror cooperative LCG. And for me, I don't know. I don't play any of those. So, and I'm not looking forward to any of those. So, I don't really know what I do. I guess that's why I'm doing everything I can to hold on to the corpse of Conquest as hard as I can. But, it's sad and it's kind of frustrating, but like I say, it's trivial because it's just a fucking game. It's
Sure.
Literally in the grand scheme of life, it's not all that important, I suppose. It's so it's kind of funny and it's kind of biphasic, right? So it's doing two things at once. But look, it is what it is. The news is out. I've kind of like we talked about, come to accept it over the last few months. So. It sucks, but I wasn't shocked by it, and, life moves on.
Yeah, I definitely think you brought up a really good point. When it all comes down to it is just a game, even though I used it to fulfill a certain purpose.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, it was just strange once all the rumors started to really come to a head, and I kind of stood convinced that Conquest was coming to an inevitable end. Just the thought that it could suddenly be absent from my life was such a weird, hollow feeling at first, just because I got so much meaning and purpose out of creating videos and whatnot for strangers on the internet. I used to do that podcast for Lord of the Rings, and I used to do videos for that. And as someone who isn't exactly extroverted, I made a ton of friends online back in the day, and there was a lot of drama and interpersonal kind of awkwardness that resulted in my eventually leaving the LOTR community. And just the opportunity to have like Conquest as a way of accessing all of those things again that I used to have, that was just a really cool opportunity. And I'd gotten so wrapped up in having this online persona and being a respected community member and being one of the only people that was putting out videos, just the fact that that could all disappear at a moment's notice, that was just kind of strange, because I started thinking about my life. You know, I'm currently a full-time college student, but I'm in the middle of summer, so I don't really have a whole lot to do outside of exercise and just kind of get ready for next term. So it just seemed like suddenly there was this weird empty feeling, and it just really made me reassess, like, maybe it wasn't healthy putting out a video every day and spending, you know, hours on a daily basis trying to make sure that I could publish something tomorrow, and just a lot of introspection and thought and, you know, self-discovery and reflection and all sorts of stuff like that. So just kind of thinking hard about what's most important in life, and I didn't really feel, and I don't feel, resentment or anything like that. In some sense, there's like a little bit of relief, just because I'm not going to feel pressured to continue putting out content for the Conquest community. Like, you and I are going to be talking about our plans, and we both intend to remain involved to some degree, but I don't know, it's just weird to think that I was so involved for so long, and now it seems inevitable that our already smallish community is eventually just going to shrink down to nearly nothing.
Yeah, there was like a joke on the Skype thread, because the Skype thread's been, you know, it's been losing some members. I think we've lost like 9 members in the last like 4 days. So I mean, we still have like 94 people in there, but whatever. And someone like 3 or 4 left kind of in a row, and I think Fighting Walloon was like, "Can the last guy turn off the lights?" It was kind of funny, because eventually it will kind of just dwindle down, you know. But yeah, I mean, like, so like, what do you think? Like, what are your best memories of Conquest? You know, now that, okay, we've accepted it, and we kind of, you know, each in our own way dealt with the news and the creeping death of Conquest as it came, and now it's here. So you know, let's reflect for just a bit here. What are your best memories of it, Mitch?
Well, I think I've always been kind of unique in the fact that I've enjoyed generating hype and sharing my enthusiasm with people more than actually playing Conquest.
Sure.
Like, to be totally honest, it's been, I don't know, probably a couple months since I've actually played a game, just because I don't really enjoy this extremely tense, extremely high-stress gaming environment, just because I don't sit there and get in the hours of experience necessary to feel comfortable with it. So for me, it's that feeling of just belonging and the overall sense of community, kind of sharing what I care most about with other people, and putting some content out there, reading people express their appreciation for it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the main thing for me, is just being part of a community and making friends online to kind of take the place of those that I don't have in real life.
Yeah.
But how about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously being involved in this great community, you know, Facebook and Skype and the forums and all that, you know, that's a big part of it. Just the people I've gotten to meet and talk to, and you know, I talk to these guys online, you know, more often than I talk to like my real life friends, you know, that have nothing to do with Conquest. So, you know, getting to go to Worlds last year was a big highlight. Obviously, I got to meet you and got to meet all these other people that I had known, and I guess from like a competitive standpoint, you know, since I am the one on the cast here who has wasted weeks of their life playing Conquest. You know, I guess I made top cut like in I guess it was a couple seasons ago of the Black Crusade. You know, out of 111 players, I think I finished like 20 something, and then in my store championship, I got to beat Ryan Graham, who was top 4 at Gen Con last year. So those are kind of like my competitive highlights. I didn't get to play as competitively as much as some. You know, there's not a big meta around here. I don't have the ability to just drive all over for store championships and regionals and Gen Con. So, you know, I just, you know, I think the big highlight is the community. And then second to that, you know, when the few times I got to kind of, you know, shut up and sit down and really play competitively, you know, I guess I made a little bit of noise, not a lot of noise, but I got to make a little bit, so that felt good.
Yeah, I suppose just for me, first of all, I want to give a tremendous thanks to everybody who helped to make it possible for me to attend the 2015 World Championships event, just because I wasn't intending to go, and then John Gobet got it in his mind where he should create like a GoFundMe, and thanks to the generosity of our community, you know, they scraped together something like $500 and flew me out there, and then you let me stay in your hotel. So at the cost of sharing a bed with you for a few nights, it was like an all-expenses-paid vacation.
That's like not a cost. That's like an extra benefit.
It was an honor. But yeah, I mean, it was just awesome knowing that people appreciated me to such an extent that they were willing to actually, like, put money into it, just because a lot of people will watch something for free, but even, you know, $1 or $2, it's suddenly this big investment. But competitively speaking, I've always considered myself to be really good at a lot of different games. I just never put in the time necessary to become genuinely great at Conquest, because I'd rather have been doing different things. But I think I got something like 6th place out of 115 people in your Black Crusade, and then maybe 5th place out of like 150 or something along those lines. But I went to my first in my life IRL card game tournament, my regional championship, this earlier this year, and I got 2nd out of 31 people. I'd never played more than 1 match of Conquest in a day, and all of a sudden I was playing like 7 consecutive games and beating players I had no right to. And I think maybe if there was a single competitive moment that stands out most, it was beating Davis Kingsley, the 2014 runner-up world champion, in a one-on-one game online. What made it particularly sweet is the fact that he was running 45 minutes late, and especially in the light of some kind of forums drama that has kind of come up, I am convinced that he did it deliberately to put me on tilt and piss me off. Well, so it felt extra good beating him.
That's funny because, you know, I've probably played him like 20 times, and as I already said, I'm the one that's wasted weeks trying to get good at this game, and I never beat him, even when, you know, we just showed up and there was no, like, on-tilt late drama. So, but, you know, and I guess running the Black Crusade has been fun because, you know, again, I don't really have much of a local meta. You know, for a long time, it was just Sizer and I, and maybe a random, you know, we had another guy that would kind of come in here and there named Paul, and, you know, pick up game here or there with a couple other buddies. But, I you know, I guess thanks to the guys at Octagon, because, you know, that's what made playing Conquest possible for me, and I just appreciative of all the people that wanted to play in the Black Crusade. I mean, you know, I'm like no one special because I ran it. I just happened to be one of the guys who really enjoyed playing the first one that, the original Conquest podcast did. And when that guy kind of like set down the torch, I thought, well, I don't necessarily want to pick it up, but someone needs to pick it up because I want to play in more of these tournaments. I mean, that's why I play in my own tournaments. Because, like, if someone said, Sam, you shouldn't be able to play since you are the TO, I'd be like, well, then I guess I'll TO because I love the game enough. But, like, fuck that, I want to play. So yeah, that's been fun too.
Yeah, I guess.
And those will continue. I mean, we'll get into our future plans here, but just as a little nugget, Black Crusades will continue.
And just because I want to make sure I don't forget, I just want to give a huge thanks to everyone who's ever sent in a video to me. I remember the first time someone, filmed themselves playing Conquest on a tabletop and actually sent me in the footage to cast and commentate. That was just ridiculous. Like, it just felt... I used to watch a lot of StarCraft 2 commentaries, like Lag TV and Husky StarCraft and people like that, and it was just so cool to have an opportunity to kind of mimic that style and just, share what I'm passionate and enthusiastic about with everybody on the internet. And another huge thanks to anybody who ever has let me commentate one of their Octagon games, just because it's so cool to see such a diverse swath of players from all around the world that sometimes play dramatically different decks, that speak different languages, and there are so many different cultures involved, and so many people are all brought together by this one, now tragically canceled card game. But, Sam, just to kind of do a little bit of a retrospective here, how did you first get involved with FFG and Conquest? I know you mentioned Warhammer Invasion, but was that your first experience?
Yeah, it was Invasion, and, that was canceled, and I've got a buddy named Kiefer, and he was big into 40K, and he's like, man, you got to try the new FFG 40K living card game because it's awesome. And I'm like, no, man, like, that's no good. I don't want that shit because, the 40K is more popular than fantasy, and that's why they canceled Invasion. I mean, I'm sure that's probably not even true, or maybe it is, but who cares? It's irrelevant. And he's like, no, try it out. And I was hooked from, he got it at Gen Con, and he brought it back and showed it to me, and I was hooked right away. And, he kind of didn't really stick with the game, but it's funny because now, like, I haven't really played with Sizer lately, and, he's not going to Worlds, so, like, there's no, like, he's not, like, dying to get games in because he knows it's going away, too, and he's got a new baby and all this stuff. So now, like, for my in-real-life game nights, we're just back at Kiefer's house playing other games because Conquest has died, so it's like... I can't even get in as much Conquest as I like because now I'm like back where it all began with the guy where it all began, but we're doing other stuff. Well, we're doing Warhammer Quest, and that's going to get shit canned too, so we'll find something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, he got me into it, and I appreciate it.
Well, I guess for me, my first experience with Fantasy Flight games was their StarCraft board game. I used to play the computer game. The game itself was really cool. I was looking up rules or something along those lines on the internet, and I stumbled upon the announcement for there's this Lord of the Rings living card game coming out, and I didn't have a big group of friends then either. I was kind of fresh out of graduate school, still working on my master's thesis, and... StarCraft was fun, but it's one of those like Euro-style board games where it takes 3 to 5 hours to play it, even with a couple people, so I couldn't exactly convince like classmates or the few friends I had to play it with me. So I thought, Lord of the Rings, cool, it's cooperative, it's a living card game, so it doesn't have the collectible model, there's no random booster packs, I don't have to worry about beating people into the ground, so they're not going to be disincentivized from playing with me, so I started to do my Conquest routine with that game. I became a prominent community member. I would write reviews. I would eventually join a podcast called Cardboard of the Rings. And eventually, when that was a little bit too silly for me, even though I'd made some awesome online friends, I decided to kind of split my time between, work and school and that podcast with creating a video series called the Lord of the Rings, the LOTR LCG Progression Series with my friend Matthew. And our premise was we started all over again at the very beginning of that game. Like when I started covering Conquest, even though I came to the game maybe 6 months or a year late, it was after all the Warlord Cycle war packs came out before the Great Devourer. Basically, I started with the core set, did all the card evaluation stuff. I opened each and every expansion in chronological order. I would do card evaluations, and since LOTR is cooperative, you would play against an artificial intelligence run encounter deck. So it would be like open an expansion, evaluate the cards, play the scenario on video. And it was much more serious than the podcast, and I was enjoying being a part of both. But eventually, when the video series caught up to the podcast, there started to be some toes trotted upon, and it kind of felt like I was attempting to replace the sillier podcast from within. So after a couple Gen Cons, it all kind of came to a head, and I ended up feeling horribly guilty about nearly destroying this podcast that I loved. I felt like I had betrayed a bunch of friends that I had, so I left that community. At one point, I came back, tried the video thing again, but I just felt overwhelmed trying to produce videos as quickly as possible. Just like for Conquest, for a long time I put out daily videos, and all of it was an attempt to kind of recapture that magic where I felt like I had meaning, I had belonging and purpose, just because my career has been so unfortunately unsatisfying. But when Conquest became a thing, when FFG said, hey, guess what, Tyranids are coming out, and I gave the game a try, it was like an excuse to try to recapture some of that magic. So I did my card evaluations, I interviewed a bunch of existing established community members like yourself, like a lot of podcast co-hosts, and I kind of slowly but surely made a name for myself in the Conquest community. And, over the next year and change, I mentioned I've made nearly 350 videos now. Recently, I was on the 100th episode of that Lord of the Rings podcast, Cardboard of the Rings, and they kind of interviewed me, and we kind of talked our way through all that, once existing bad blood. And anybody following my channel will have noticed that I've started to cover Lord of the Rings LCG again, and that wasn't because I thought Conquest was dying, but just because I've missed that original LCG love of mine so much. And now that I've kind of dipped my toes back in LOTR, it's just been a crazy experience as such a more mature and sophisticated gamer, kind of revisiting a game that when I last played it, it was so much more like innocent and infantile, and now it's been out for something like 5 years. So I suppose I look forward to covering that. I'll be doing some Conquest stuff as well. But I guess, I've kind of lost track of what I was trying to say, but that was what pushed me into Conquest, is loving LOTR, loving the Tyranids, loving Warhammer 40,000, and just kind of jumping ship from LOTR to Conquest. And now that Conquest is, looking like it's headed toward an untimely end, I'm kind of revisiting the card game that, although I'll never consider myself an expert at Conquest, especially revisiting LOTR, I do. Not to toot my own horn, I feel like I know what I'm talking about, and I guess the community response welcoming me back with open arms has been awesome. So even though I'm, in a sense, losing Conquest, it's nice to know that I can maintain at least some semblance of, internet semi-celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have, this kind of, fallback plan, I guess. And
Sure.
At the same time, it's also like revisiting, your first love. So it's kind of like a bittersweet win-win scenario for you, I suppose.
Sure. I mean, in a sense, it's, like no matter what happens with Conquest, if a year from now nobody even remembers it other than me, I'll always have these incredible memories of meeting people like you, the other podcasts that we're affiliated with, like the guys at First Planet, John Gobet, Travis McDaniel, Guy Lev, Parker Ince. Some of the closest friends I have, I've made thanks to Conquest. And just the fact that, you and I, Sam, could probably go to almost anywhere in the world and we would know at least someone in that country, if not that, state or province or city. And
I never thought of it that way.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's an experience I will certainly have, and I'm sure you will have for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's some fine fellows we've met, so.
Sure, but when it all comes down to it, this is just a game, but why stick with it? Like, I've created so many videos, you've run so many online leagues, I've gotten so many messages about you, complaining that someone hasn't reported a game or that you've had to mediate some sort of disagreement. Why bother remaining faithful to this, silly card game?
Well, I mean, it's fun. It's been a fun game. It's a great game. I love it. It's my favorite game I've ever played. I've barely touched my PlayStation 4 since I got into Conquest. But I think, the community and like the friendships you make. I mean, just like you said a second ago, we could go anywhere, probably any country, like damn near any country, and we know someone there. Like, you could just throw up a message, like, anyone around and want to play Conquest for old time's sake? Not that I'm lugging my backpack full of cards, halfway around the globe whenever it is that I get to make that trip. But, just because it's fun. So, it sucks. It sucks that it's over, but yeah, I stuck with it because I enjoyed it on, all the levels we've talked about, the gameplay level and the community level.
Yeah. And I guess for me, it was just... obviously the community stuff, but it was a cheaper version of the tabletop game. I didn't have to sit and paint models. It wasn't, costing me an arm and a leg to afford everything. I didn't have to worry about Games Workshop releasing a Tyranids Codex update that made 50% of my army illegal. I will never forget that, and that's why I stopped playing the tabletop game, but it has been a hell of a strategy game, and I just look forward to seeing what else the community does with it, what happens in the current season of the Black Crusade and beyond. And of course, I would be lying to myself if I didn't say I didn't feel like a huge sense of obligation to finish whatever projects I've started. But just talking about Conquest as a game, looking back at multiple Warpack cycles, a couple deluxe expansions in our core set, what are some of your, favorite cards? What are some of your favorite warlords? Mechanically speaking or thematically speaking, what have you enjoyed the most?
Well, I think for me, it's I kind of have still stuck with where I started, which is Chaos and Tau. I love Chaos from a fluff standpoint. I love him from a gameplay standpoint. Tau, I don't know as much from the fluff, obviously, but I love their style. I love Shadow Sun style. And, I've come to, I like War. He was fun, and I had some success with Eldorath, and I still hate Kith. And, I've even come to appreciate Nazdrag and Zogwart as well, even though that's probably my least favorite from the fluff is the Orcs, and I've said that before, but
sure.
From a gameplay perspective, I've come to appreciate the Orcs too, and so for me it's kind of like, I don't know if I ever left the starting point or if I've come back to the starting point, but I always love the Chaos and Shadow Sun, so yeah, favorite cards... Just like, we've talked about like jank before, but anything that's just a little different, like, I love first turn Caius Roth in a Shadow Sun deck. That's just a great play, and you get rid of your other copy of Caius Roth and one attachment that you can recur or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, these elites, we talked about that last time. They're fun. It's fun to play these elites. So I don't know if I have like one favorite card or whatever, but yeah, I guess chaos. That's kind of a lame answer, but it is my answer.
I would say for my personal style, I haven't played Conquest nearly as much as a lot of players, and for a very long time I would always say, I've got under 20 games played or whatever else. I would say nowadays I probably have probably somewhere in the ballpark of 45 games played total, and that's probably accurate, but I played Broderick War a lot, but I wouldn't say he's like a favorite or anything like that. I like effects like Ragnar that are direct damage. From a player's standpoint, I love effects that offer up a lot of value, so it's probably good that I'm an enthusiast as opposed to a player, just because I'd probably be one of those million Kith players out there, or Eldorath players, just because I love control. I like making sure that I'm the one kind of dictating the tempo or pace of the game. But I've always liked the Emperor's Warrant. If the enemy's warlord retreats or isn't there in the first place, you get a ton of value by exhausting one of their dudes, dealing damage to one of their dudes. The Volatile Pyrovore is maybe one of my favorite Tyrannid cards, just because if you kill it, you take a bunch of damage. And Gene Implantation, the signature event of Subject Omega X 62113, is just fantastic value, because you kill something, then you mind control it, and then you can attack with it. And I think Fetid Haze also, where you're healing yourself and damaging your enemy. But just as a spectator, as a video producer, I've loved Gorzod and Commander Starblaze, just because they change what's possible so much. Like Gorzod, all of a sudden you're seeing Space Marine vehicles with an Orc. Commander Starblaze, all of a sudden the alignment wheel is altered. And then just any kind of card that has really changed up the meta, like Sowing Chaos, where from now on you have to play differently when you're running up against a Chaos player. Same thing with Rock Bombardment, outflank them. So just stuff like that, mechanically speaking. But Sam, I suppose we wanted to get together primarily to kind of explain to the community what our plans are to remain active members of it. I guess, what are the plans for you and for your online leagues and everything else?
Well, yeah, we're going to keep running the Black Crusade. Obviously, we're right in the middle of this current autumn or fall 2016 season, so we're going to finish that up, and I do plan on continuing to, hopefully run 3 seasons a year as I've been doing, and I'll do that as long as there's interest. I mean, I was doing these tournaments back when there was, 15, 20 guys, and if I can scrape together, double that, that'd be awesome. If I can only scrape together that'd be great too. And I just want an opportunity to keep playing this game because I love it. And, people have said, they've talked the talk. We'll see if they walk the walk. But a lot of people have said they're still interested in doing it. I guess we'll see in, 4 months from now when the winter season starts how it'll do. But, the main thing that I'll be doing to stay involved going forward is, we've announced this Black Crusade expansion to Warhammer Conquest. So this is a fan-made expansion, and it just kind of dawned on me, we talked to the guys from Winvasion podcast when we had them on a while back, and I used those cards that Torsten made as fan-made cards for Invasion, and obviously, it wasn't like, oh, this isn't going to happen if I don't do something. Like, I'm well aware that this is a very passionate community, and I'm sure there's going to be fan-made or homebrew expansions and cards popping up, on Facebook and CardGameDB and stuff. But I thought, the Black Crusade is kind of like one of the few, or maybe perhaps only, organized play structures we're going to have left.
Yeah.
And, what can we do to get some cards that, would be, not just, Bob's Meta came up with a few cards and they play them for fun, but, as close as we can get to, official expansions. So, I messaged the guy that runs the Octagon plug in for Conquest and kind of told them my plan. Like, this isn't just some willy-nilly shit I'm going to come up with. Like, I'm gathering like a group of, multiple different people who have good experience and who are former playtesters and champions and, kind of prominent community members. And, we're going to spend time developing these things and playtesting these things. And would that be something you're willing to put on Octagon? And he said, I'm not going to be putting just any fan-made expansion on Octagon and adding it to the card pool because, it wouldn't be fair if, the guys in the Seattle meta came up with, these 5 cards and now people logging on in Switzerland or something have to understand these things. But, so we wanted to make it official and, for better or worse, Black Crusade is kind of a big deal and people know to, come to my website and they follow my posts and things like this. So I thought this could just be a way to kind of keep something officially rolling. And, obviously no one has to use these things if you don't want to use them. But, they're going to be, we're working on it. So it's in its infancy stages. I mean, I knew the announcement was coming. I didn't know it was coming Friday. That was kind of quick. I thought it'd be like after at least pack 5 was on the shelves for a little while, let alone pack 6.
Yeah.
But we're working on it. We got lots of ideas. So there's a good group of us. So, a big thanks to everybody who accepted my invite to come be a part of this. And, we're working to get these cards I guess we're going to kind of be working to focus down our brainstorming ideas kind of by like worlds or post worlds over the next couple months. And, get 2 or 3 good cards per faction, really hone down, to be ready for like a January, hopefully January release, early 2017 is what I'm shooting for. And,
sure.
So we'll design these things and then post worlds, we'll probably widen the net a little bit to some select members across the globe for playtesting. Mm-hmm. And then we can kind of fine-tune those, and hopefully they'll be ready for the next season of Black Crusade League play. And, we'll see where it goes from there. I'm not going to set any giant lofty goals. I'd like to do, maybe 2 expansions a year or something if that's possible. But it just depends on, involvement and feedback and how long people want to keep working with me on this and, things like that. But that's the goal right now is to get this expansion underway. And, I tried to provide a little glimmer of light on the Dark Friday of the cancellation news. And, there was a really good community response to it. So you can go to Facebook and Paul Steiner has put up a form where you can submit your card ideas. And we've looked at all these already. And some of them are surprisingly similar to stuff we came up with on our own. And some of them are crazy, but we're looking at all of them and considering all of them. So, this isn't like I don't want any person out there that knows that we're doing this or that's listening to this to feel like I'm trying to like squash your homebrew expansion. That's not at all what this is. But I just wanted something for like the community to rely on, to look forward to. Like if you're gonna, if you're a big enough Conquest fan, you're going to take the time and effort to come play in the next Black Crusade and the one after that and maybe the one after that. Like, it'd be nice to have something new to come play with. And so that's kind of the goal of this. So that's the big plans for me. Yeah.
Well, and I guess I just want to emphasize the fact that this is kind of a council of experts that you've assembled. It's, without naming names, it's national champions from a few different places around the world. We've got a continental champion. We've got someone who's won, an over 50-person tournament. We've even gotten some input from a world champion. Yeah.
Right, and so I'm not trying to, like...
Oh, sure.
Be secretive or like not give these guys credit.
Yeah.
I'm totally appreciative these guys helped me, but I just don't, they didn't sign up to be like flooded with your ideas in their inbox or whatever. Yeah, so I just, you can direct all the public hate towards me, I suppose.
Sure.
But
I just wanted to make sure that people know it's not just like me and you coming up with crazy ideas where it's like, what would make Packmaster Kith even better? It's like,
Right.
you know, what is this faction lacking? What would they have maybe naturally seen had Conquest gone on to have a very healthy life?
Correct. Like, yeah, that's kind of our goals, is like we want to make fun cards, sure.
Yeah.
But like more so than that, what do these factions need? Or what does this warlord need
Sure.
to really get better and be competitive? And yeah, so there's like a group of, I think we're just over a dozen, and from 3 different countries. So we are trying to, yeah, like you say, it's not just you and me coming up with some crazy shit. So
Yeah, and it is a lot of people with playtest experience, people that
absolutely
are probably much better qualified than I am to say, should that be a 2 or should that be a 3, or is this crazy? And certainly there will be a lot of playtesting, and I think the goal for this project is like less is more, in that quality definitely over quality. But I suppose just to take my turn and to reveal my hand, insofar as the Tyrantcast, I guess there is a finite number of episodes left. Sam, you and I have agreed to review our next 2, the last 2 Death World Cycle War Packs. We'll do that. We'll probably do an episode wrapping up your experience at this year's World Championship, the last official World Championship for Conquest, and I think then there's a collaborative finale in the works with the guys at the First Planet podcast. So friends of the show, Brian Ruptash and Scott Armstrong, we're going to get together with some guests and I'm sure celebrate everything that Conquest was, and talk about what our hopes for a possible future for this game may be. I'm going to continue doing the featured matches for the current season of the Black Crusade, and as much as I've never really been a fan of like house rules or homemade expansion content, I feel sufficiently invested in Conquest that I'll probably try my hand at doing some casting or commentating of games that feature, not exactly official cards, but some of these fan-made cards that have really been refined and play-tested into the ground. So I think, a match a week I can agree to commentate, and primarily, slowly but surely, the focus of the Hive Tyrant channel, even though the branding is a little awkward, is going to turn more and more toward the Lord of the Rings living card game, just because it's been an incredible opportunity and just a very fulfilling experience returning to that game, now that I feel like all the bad blood and hurt feelings is behind me. So I suppose that is pretty much that. I look forward to the Black Crusade, look forward to throwing my opinion out there as putting on the card designer hat a little bit, although I'll leave the majority of that to the experts. And you've said what you plan to do. I guess... any plans for other LCGs yourself, Sam? I know you're not exactly like foaming at the mouth over Arkham Horror, but anything else on your horizon?
I mean, you never say never kind of thing, right? It just kind of depends on, what my little group of friends do. I mean, Sizer tried to get me into Game of Thrones, and that just didn't really tickle my fancy, and I've been getting together with, some friends, like my buddy Kiefer, who introduced me to Conquest. He lives with a couple roommates, and they're all, like, guys in their 20s who are bachelors. So in their basement, they just have this giant poker table and then, like, 4 bookshelves full of games. So we've just been going over there, and I got a buddy that I work with who's, kind of opened up and confessed, his inner gaming nerd, and he's been joining us over there. So, we've been trying to do that, weekly when possible, if not, 2 or 3 times a month. And, we'll see what that brings, right? Because that leaves room open. Like, if those guys get into L5R or Arkham Horror, who knows? I mean, for me, for me to really be invested in a game, like to the degree I am with this, it's really got to capture me from a fluff standpoint too. And, for whatever reason, right or wrong, like feudal Japan just doesn't get me going. And I do like Arkham Horror, but I guess I don't know how I feel about co-op LCGs. Like I tried Lord of the Rings and it's fun, but it just didn't do it for me. I'm kind of a competitive person, so
Sure.
I like the competitive aspect of it. And, so I think I'd like to think that between running the Black Crusade League and working on these, official, unofficial Black Crusade expansions, that'll hopefully keep me occupied. And, I used to read and write as a hobby quite proficiently, and those have gone by the wayside pretty much in any meaningful manner for the last 2 years because of Conquest. So maybe I'll get back into that.
Yeah, I guess pretty much all I do for a hobby outside of filming videos, recording videos, is I go to the gym, and while I'm at the gym, when I'm doing cardio, I play my match 3 game of choice, Pokemon Shuffle, and at the time of releasing this episode, I've got something like 975 hours played, so I look forward to much, much more of that game, and apart from that, there's LOTR, and if anybody hasn't seen it, if you've any interest at all in a cooperative card game, like I'm not the biggest Middle-earth or Tolkien or Lord of the Rings fan, but I just love the mechanics of the LOTR LCG, so check out the complete tutorial and how to play guide. For me, I don't have really any interest in Arkham Horror. I don't really, feel drawn to the madness or the insanity or any of that stuff. Legend of the Five Rings, I'm sure it's a great game, but I don't really want to start up again what I did for Conquest, just, for the sake of trying to recapture some of the same magic. I'm going to go with my original passion, Lord of the Rings. Hopefully, a lot of my Conquest fans will enjoy it. If not, no hard feelings whatsoever. We've all had an incredible time with this game while it lasted, and hopefully, through your efforts, Sam, and the efforts of a great many others, it will continue to last, and I still have some role to play in, continuing to proliferate this card game. But I guess, unless you have anything else to add, let's just close with answering the one question that a bold, daring community member stepped forward to ask us. We've never had a ton of community engagement, but someone asked a question, and it's very relevant to the design of new cards and kind of fleshing out existing factions, warlords, and whatnot. Stanley K asks, which faction is the strongest at the end of Conquest's run, and which are the weakest? And how do you and I intend to try to fix the imbalance? So what are your thoughts there, Sam? Strongest, weakest, and what are you maybe going to do about it?
Well, thanks for the question, Stanley, and you kind of put me on the spot here. So I'm not. We made a decision early on, and I was a supporter of this decision, as was the majority of the group. We're not going to
wait until marriage.
Yeah, but although I do recall when you first announced that I was going to officially join permanently as co-host, I did say that I knocked you up, so now we had to get married. But
that's right.
No, we're not going to nerf anything. We're not going to errata anything. I like the game the way it is, and the vast majority, if not all of us in my design group, felt the same way. And are there problems? Like, sure, I still hate Clavex, and troop transport with forward barracks is a problem, and yada yada yada. There are cards that are a little whack, but there's nothing that's, like, in my opinion, horribly overpowered or horribly out of balance. Like, yes, we all know Kith is still the best, but it's not like Kith wins 80% of her games and everyone else is, sitting at below 500. So we're not going to do anything to weaken the strong decks or strong warlords, but those decks and those card types, they just might not get new cards. Like, obviously, we're going to make new Dark Eldar cards, but they're probably not going to be cards that would greatly benefit Kith to the exclusion of Urian and Morn. And I think the weakest, it's tough to tell. I don't know where Necrons fit yet. And I'm I'm not sure how weak or not weak they are, but I do know we want to give Tyranids some good cards, and we even brought in at the recommendation of one of the guys who was a former playtester. We brought in another former playtester who was very good in playtesting with NIDS, and then even when they hit the real table, he continued to do excellent with them in competitive play. And so we even like brought him in as like a NID expert, and
Right.
hopefully we want to try to make some cards for all these factions that shore up some holes. I mean, I don't have anything to spoil for you guys just yet, but like we've talked about, how can we make, like the words that just aren't so great better? How can we make Barzul better? How can we make Tyranids better? How can we make, like smaller units that you dump a lot of resources into or onto, with attachments or whatever, that, now you put all your eggs in that one basket and they don't get backlash because they're not an elite or something. So like, we're just kind of looking at things like that. That's, I think, the main plan.
Well, and then there's a little bit of a follow-up here. It's after Swarms and now Elites. Where do you see this game going post-cancellation? Like, is there a specific aspect of the game that you yourself would like to focus on, such as tokens or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, boy, that's almost too broad of a concept for us to even tackle. I mean, the main focus is make good cards to fill voids that need filling. And I mean, me personally, I don't think like there's this massive underutilization of token units. So, like for that example, I don't see it swinging anywhere. I don't think we're going to try to change the direction of the meta. I think it's more just shoring up some existing weaknesses, I guess, is what I'd say.
And that's what I would absolutely love if we were to see additional official expansion content, deluxes, war packs. I would want I don't care about new warlords. I'd like our existing official content to be supported in a way that almost every warlord, almost every faction is on approximately equal footing. I think maintaining like perfect balance is impossible because there's 25 plus warlords released at this point, but just doing the best we can to raise everything up. Brad Andrews, the lead developer, has talked a lot about kind of the ebb and flow, the rise and fall in power, popularity, and prominence for a warlord. Like maybe originally Kith was hot shit, and then it was Broderick War stole the spotlight, and now people are kind of moving slowly away from Broderick, and it's Kugoth and Eldorath that are, fantastic. So maybe...
And Kith.
Yeah, well, sure, right. Kith probably doesn't need any help anytime soon, but, maybe some new cards could make Barzul the new hotness, or Commander Starblaze could, people could use that warlord's name in a sentence without giggling, and even Urian has gotten quite a bit better, and if we can keep that upward trend going, I think if we keep slowly but surely breathing a little bit of life into this not yet dead card game, there's still so much fun to be had. So I just look forward to seeing what these community experts come up with, because from multiple nations, there's some spectacularly talented players and people with a lot of experience playtesting in an official capacity, so they know what they're doing. Brad valued their opinions. I think it only makes sense that we should value their opinions as well. And, if you don't care for it, by no means feel obligated to use any of this
to
stuff.
use them. Yeah, you don't have to use them. And, I mean, look, none of us are game developers or game designers. We all have normal jobs, but I think in light of the current situation, and I'll take myself out of this, I'm just a good organizer. I mean, and that's debatable, right? I don't mind taking charge of a situation. That's why I'm running the Black Crusade League, and that's why I, sent all these people messages and said, hey, let's rally together, and would you please all help me do this? Because I can't do it. And
right.
These are people that are better at Conquest than me, and they have probably better minds for the game than me. And in light of the current situation, I guess we're about as as good as the community is going to get, because we don't have a freelance game designer who's just gonna come and work for us for free. So
right.
We don't have any big meta shift plans or anything. It's just we love the game, and we don't want to see the game die. And so it's like the one thing that will kill a game quicker than anything, a living card game quicker than anything, is no new cards. So it's like if we're going to try to limp along with Black Crusade and Octagon and little local get-togethers of 2 or 3 or 4 people, and there's no more tournaments or whatever, what can we do for fun and for as close to balance and good cards as we can get within that kind of like fun realm. So, hopefully, if you guys are still going to play the game and you're looking forward to this, I hope we don't let you down. I don't think we will at all. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, unfortunately, Eric Lang is not part of our playtesting group, but
No.
we're going to do the best with what we've got. God damn it.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I guess that's really it. Sam, you and I have pretty much accomplished what we set out to do in recording this bonus inter-war pack episode here. So I guess any last thoughts, anything else you'd like to say or get off your chest or anything like that before we wrap up this video?
Well, yeah, I just want to say, thank you, sincerely. We're not going away just yet. We've got 4 more episodes. So it's kind of like the big crossover First Planet with guest roundtable episode. That'll be like the big retirement party, but this is kind of like the retirement announcement. So the retirement press release. But so I really do hope you guys stick around for the next 4 episodes, and I've got a lot of nice, warm words from the community over the last few days regarding the Tyrantcast. So thank you very much. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for interacting. I should say, obviously, thank you to you, Mitch, for having me on for whatever crazy reason you decided you wanted to have me on as a permanent co-host. And
crippling loneliness.
Yeah, I was just there. I was just a body to invite on. But and thanks to Brian and Scott at First Planet. I was just some guy looking to play a game, on my couch in my underwear on my laptop, and I thought, hey, this organized Octagon tournament thing could maybe make it happen. And Brian was just kind enough to say, when I asked him, could you please promote the tournament on your podcast? He's like, well, come on and talk about it. And then they were, for some foolish reason, nice enough to invite me back again and again, which led me to interacting with you and being on their show with you, and then it led me here. So thanks to everybody who made it possible to, I guess, get me on the airwaves, because it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. And yeah, so thanks.
Yeah, so just speaking for myself, a tremendous thanks to everybody out there who's listened to this episode, who's ever watched a single Hive Tyrant video. Thank you to anyone who's ever let me cast or commentate one of their matches, anybody who sent in footage. Anybody who's helped to make the Conquest community what it was, what it is, and what it will hopefully, in some reduced capacity, continue to be. Thank you to you, Sam, to every guest I've ever had on the show. Thank you to Fantasy Flight Games for producing such a fantastic product, and thank you to each and every designer that helped build Conquest into the living card game it is. A huge thanks to Brad Andrews for all of his tireless effort in not just designing this, in my opinion, very, very well balanced, incredibly fun and tactical card game, but just for going out of his way to interact with people on social media, to be friendly with me in public, and just to be a really personable, likable guy, for really going above and beyond the Call of Duty and just being a st-up dude. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that. Thanks to Brad. I mean, he's been on the cast, and he's always interacting with us and all the different community members on Facebook, and he donated to the Black Crusade out of his own pocket, which was very nice of him to do. So yeah, big thanks to Brad and FFG for making the game.
Yeah. So I'll just wrap things up here by saying, again, one last thanks to anybody who's ever contributed to my Patreon account. It's been a huge relief having a bit of extra cash coming into, front for internet bills and electric bills and purchasing a new microphone for myself and Sam. And I never really invested in all the audio baffling that I probably should. But in time, if anybody's continues their interest in trying to grow Conquest and still following me when I'm doing the unofficial card, including Black Crusade matches and everything else, I value your contributions as much as I ever have before. So just a huge thanks to everybody out there. Again, if you're listening to this, thanks. And I just look forward to seeing what happens with this game. I look forward to seeing the contents of our last expansion, recording a few more episodes of the Tyrantcast, and then just casting some games for the indefinite future. So there's still some cool stuff to look forward to. If anybody has interest in Lord of the Rings, like I said, I've got that tutorial video. It's definitely a game I'd recommend checking out, but I suppose I'll go ahead and end things here. So, as always, thank you so much for listening, and be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come. And take care.